doesn't make sense without that presence you're talking about.
Right. That is absolutely right. Yeah, you know, because especially the first 4 announcements there, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, blessed are the meek, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So, you know, through reading other people like Eugene Peterson or Dallas Willard or, you know, just kind of heroes of mine with language, you know, we were able to put some other ways of looking at it on there. So in terms of the meek, I've always thought about meekness as humility. Whereas, you know, it's almost like a virtue. Whereas, you know, when Jesus is saying, you know, the meek are blessed and they shall inherit the earth, he's talking to people who have lost everything, right. You know, lost their land. And he's talking about literally about the land. He's referencing a psalm, you know. And so maybe it's about the people without the power. So maybe it's more than looking at the meekness as humility. Maybe look at it as humiliation.
Which, when you start to talk about this kind of language in the context of what our world,
yeah.
particularly in the West,
yeah.
let's say, what our world defines as success or
yes.
the target on the wall that you're shooting for.
Yeah.
This is very, it's a little unsettling what you're saying.
It's really unsettling, and because, you know, our modern life screams at us to climb a ladder, to get to the top. Mm-hmm. You know, you're only successful when you've got the numbers, you know, and the best book and the most people in your church, or the, you know, selling the most albums or whatever. And to realize that maybe the closest we'll get to God is when we have nothing left, is when we are aching for what's right, you know, and in that lack and ache and longing, we're wanting an escape and we're wanting certainty, but what we have is presence, you know, that God is on our side. And so, I mean, I live a very, what I would say a classically blessed life is, you know, it's kind of, I've got a house and I've got a car and my children are doing well, and, you know, and yet at any time in our lives we can find ourselves in one of these announcements of blessing along the way somewhere, whether that's, you know, maybe we're at the end of our rope because of an addiction or a behavior or something, you know, and it looks all right on the outside, but, you know, God is on our side in that.
What comes to mind, and tell me if this makes sense, some of these struggles are exterior and everyone can see them, but some of those seasons of being at the end of me are very interior. Mm-hmm. They can be very private yeah. moments, especially in a world where we don't share these kinds of things with each other.
Yeah.
You can go through that dry season, that dark night of the soul.
Yes.
In a variety of ways. You don't have to lose your job.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to prison. I mean,
yeah.
these things happen
yes.
to everyone.
Yeah. And I think that one of the lies that we're told is that, you know, I mean, it's so isolating, that stuff, you know, and we don't feel like we're able to share it.
It feels like there's a shame that sometimes
exactly
wraps around
right.
it.
Yeah,
yeah.
And so we in the project we actually talk about that in terms of the pure in heart, you know, because I feel like, especially those of us that have kind of grown up in the sort of more evangelical movement, you know, the bar is set so high in terms of, you know, we mustn't fall short of this mark, you know.
Right.
And so when I think about purity and pure in heart, you know, I think about that scripture, you know, who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? You know, those with a clean hand and pure heart. And I think to myself, well, that counts me out for a start.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I think that if we're all honest, that probably is the same for everybody. And so what does blessed are the pure in heart because they're going to see God mean? Like, what does that mean? And I think that a pure heart is an undivided heart. And so I think that when we first experience shame and regret, You know, that's the moment our heart splits in some way. You know, we shove it down there. Carl Jung talked about the persona and shadow, you know, and so we shove things down in the shadow because I don't want to experience that again. So I learn how to behave so I don't feel shame and I don't feel regret, but it's lurking down there in the space that we never share. You know, and I think that the invitation in Blessed Are the Pure in Heart is to bring our shadow into the light and reunite our heart. And I think that we do that with wonder and awe and childlikeness and, you know, being present to the mystery of life.
And that is empowering
Yeah.
to what God wants to do in the kingdom. I mean, that's, now we're back to the Beatitudes Project and this idea that there are stories of hope and restoration happening in these struggles, in these broken places in the world.
Yes, and they're happening right now. You know, this isn't like stories of the past. I wanted to, you know, give a 21st century lens